Welcome to the Darkstream. Vox Day, voxday.blogspot.com, and unauthorized.tv. Thanks for tuning in. Tonight we are going to talk about a favorite subject of a fair number of unauthorized subscribers, namely the Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth, and the works of J.R.R. Tolkien in general. So you may have seen on the blog that things are not looking terribly good for Middle-earth right at the moment. Christopher Tolkien died last year, and he was the great guardian of his father's legacy. And so now that he's gone, it's unfortunate that the rest of his family clearly are not dedicated to the protection of their father's intellectual and literary legacy the way that Christopher Tolkien was. And we're already seeing the fallout from this. It's not a surprise to anyone, I'm sure, that the Tolkien Society is completely converged. If you notice on the blog, they're talking about all this sort of thing here. Let me find this. It's just absolutely absurd, of course. They've got a call for papers. The Tolkien Society Seminar is a short academic conference of both researcher-led and non-academic presentations, which means, of course, middle-aged fangirls, on a specific theme pertaining to Tolkien scholarship, or what passes for scholarship. The online setting saw an increased interest with over 400 attendees. I mean, that's how small these things are. With interest of the topic of diversity has steadily grown within Tolkien research, unlike everything else, right? Suddenly everybody's interested in diversity. Nobody's interested in diversity. That's just what SJWs do to converge things. It's now receiving more critical attention than ever before. Spurred by recent interpretations of Tolkien's creations and the cast list of the upcoming Amazon show, it's crucial we discuss the theme of diversity in relation to Tolkien. Translation: how do we converge Tolkien? How do we get away with it? The papers that they're asking for is representation in Tolkien's works: race, gender, sexuality, disability, class, religion, age, etc. Right, because they didn't have wheelchair-bound orcs traveling across Middle-earth in order to destroy the ring. Obviously, this was just wildly sexist, racist, and ableist. Tolkien's approach to colonialism and post-colonialism, adaptations of Tolkien's works, diversity and representation in Tolkien academia and readership. Because, of course, not anyone can just pick up a book and read it. Identity within Tolkien's works, alterity in Tolkien's works. And so what they're trying to do is just completely devastate one of the great white British European creations of the 20th century. Of all the works of the 20th century, The Lord of the Rings probably has it's one of the top 10 contenders for the best novel of the 20th century. Certainly it's the most influential novel of the 20th century. And so of course this is something that they have to destroy. This is something they're desperate to destroy. They really want to destroy. And so that's why Amazon has picked it up. And I also mentioned a link on the blog to a guy who's been paying attention to what Amazon's planning. And it's not just the blackwashing that they're going to do. It's not just the feminization that they're going to do, but they're going to completely transform what Middle-earth is. That's their goal. Don't be even remotely confused or surprised that that's what they're trying to do. In the case of Game of Thrones, they couldn't even successfully do that, despite the fact that the book is written by a SJW. It's literally written by an SJW, and yet they they actually made it worse. Why? Because they can't create anything. They're absolutely and utterly unoriginal. You know, Tolkien actually described them when he talked about the creation of the orcs. You know, Manwë is able to create, but Melkor can't. He can only twist. He can only destroy. And that's exactly what they're doing. You know, what is happening here would not surprise, it would not surprise Tolkien or C.S. Lewis in the least. You know, I never enjoyed in any way, shape, or form that hideous strength. I wasn't a big fan of the space trilogy, but I did like Out of the Silent Planet. I wasn't as big on the second book. And then the third book, I found it very tedious. But I'm going to reread it because in some ways, it's the most powerful and prescient of his books. Even more so than the Chronicles of Narnia. Of course, just because something is prescient does not mean that it is enjoyable, per se. In fact, quite the opposite in a case like that. But neither Tolkien nor Lewis would be surprised at what the SJWs are doing, because the SJWs are servants of the devil. And they are literally orcs. It's kind of funny because they're the ones who like to theorize. Well, maybe Tolkien meant black people, or maybe Tolkien meant Arabs, or maybe Tolkien meant you know, the forces of Islam during the Middle Ages. And there's all kinds of papers about this sort of thing. But the orcs are actually the SJWs. They are the twisted creatures. They are the products of the forces of evil taking what is good and beautiful and true and twisting it and perverting it into something that is ugly, evil, and false. All you have to do is look at them to see that they're ugly, evil, and false. So perhaps I should write that paper up and submit it to the Tolkien Society. I have a feeling that they weren't going to, you know, that's not something that they would accept. That's not something that they would publish. But, you know, this, I mean, the good thing about this, at least for fans of Arts of Dark and Light, is that I realize that I now have a responsibility to get going on those books. You know, now, don't get me wrong, I'm not feeling exactly apologetic here. I've already written more in the world of Selenoth than exists in The Lord of the Rings. Summa Helvetica, plus the various short stories, plus A Throne of Bones, plus A Sea of Skulls, all of that is longer in word count than The Lord of the Rings. You might not realize that. So anyhow, and it's already beginning to appear in other forms. How many of you are aware that selections from A Throne of Bones and from Summa Helvetica are going to be appearing in comic form shortly? Have a look at this. The first image you may recognize as the battlefield You've got the crows soaring high overhead, and this is the part of the battlefield where the wolf riders are facing down the Amoran cavalry. And on the second page, you can see that they're following the Tribune, Marcus Valerius Fortex, and he is engaged in a single combat with a goblin wolf rider who challenged him, and you can see that that he's quite successful. So, the first episode is going to be coming out on, I believe the plan is to do it in the middle of April. So, and people are going to have the opportunity to subscribe to it, to support it, and and keep it going. If we get enough support for A Throne of Bones, we will do the entire thing, and we'll keep going on into Sea of Skulls. It's very simple. If we have the support and the resources, we'll do it. We now have the necessary talent. We now have the illustrators, the colorists, the writers, everything. And that's not even going to be the most popular one. I can tell you right now, the legend Chuck Dixon is on fire. The artists literally can't keep up with him. He's done with Alt Hero Q. We're still waiting for the illustrators to finish it. We have Midnight's War coming out. You've probably seen the first issue of it, but the second issue and the third issue are mostly written. They're going to be, the illustrator's going to be starting on them probably within 2 weeks. He's wrapping up the 6th issue of A Throne of Bones, which is actually not technically A Throne of Bones, but set in the world of A Throne of Bones. And we actually have a brand new one that nobody knows anything about that is going to be set in a magical Renaissance Venezia in Venice, and it's going to be really good. I think it's going to be really good. And yes, you're going to be able to buy physical copies of these, but we're going to sell them for the most part as omnibuses. The individual issues don't tend to make a lot of sense. We might do issue number 1s in some case just for people that want to collect them. And then, but all of this is going to become clear in time. Everything that we're doing is going to become relatively obvious in April. When Project Asteroid hits, you're going to know it. And it's going to be great. So, but to return to the topic, we have a responsibility to preserve that which the orcs are trying to destroy. That's why we created Castelia Library. That's why we created Castelia House. And, with the way that things are going, somebody asked about, are we going to get an Awaken the Nightland audiobook? Quite possibly, but it's not, we can't, we've got some changes coming at Castelia, and the audiobook market has been essentially destroyed by Audible. Their algorithm picks winners, and if it picks you, you do great. And please keep in mind, this is not sour grapes. A Throne of Bones was blessed for 2 months by the Audible algorithm, and it sold more audiobooks than we sold of everything else ever. All right. But then once the algorithm, the algorithm giveth and the algorithm taketh away. Once it stopped being blessed by the algorithm, it dropped down to being sold, 5 or 6 copies a month. So what we're going to do, and I think that you will appreciate this, is that we're going to put all of our audiobooks that we have permission from the authors up on unauthorized. Peter Grant has already given permission. I've already given permission. We expect most of the others eventually will. And we'll have links to where you can buy the actual books. We hope that people who like the audiobooks will do so. But that's the plan. And to a certain extent, we're already kind of doing that with the Junior Classics unofficially, because the Junior Classics podcast started reading them, recording them. We've got them up there. I don't know if you realize it. If you're not unauthorized yet, you really should be, because today we added 3 hours of content, more than 3 hours of content that wasn't me, Owen, or Razorfist talking. Can we get a fix for the UATV audio download? I don't know what you mean by that. If you're talking about on your smartphone type stuff, that's not our issue per se. We are going to have, that's basically a browser issue. All we do is call the browser download. So, so all you need to do is download it. Use your computer instead of your phone, instead of your Android device, and download it. We are eventually going to stop using the browser-based media players and start using our own media player, but that's probably not going to happen for another 3-4 months. So, but just today we put up The Forge of Tolkien. Just today we put up The Metal Mythos on Danzig. That was Razorfist, but it's not Razorfist doing his usual, Razor Force offensive. And then we also put up the 9th tale in the Junior Classics podcast. And those 3 things right there are over 3 hours of content. Think about that. What do you pay to go to a movie? I mean, I realize people don't really go to the movies anymore, but you pay what, $10, $15 for a ticket to the movie, and you get 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. At unauthorized, you can get it for as little as $5 a month, and you're going to get. I mean, today, let's say that Owen does his usual thing for 2 hours. This, let's say this goes for 45 minutes, and Razorfist goes for half an hour. You're talking about 6 hours of new content a day. That doesn't count the legend Chuck Dixon. We've got 2 videos that we need to put up for his. Oh, I see. We should put up a note then. The side button doesn't allow click to download, but if you right click, you save audio as. Yeah, so it's very doable. There's an easy workaround, but we should put a comment up there so that people can see that. War Dogs is terrific. Is Stark writing more? Stark is writing more, but it's a slightly different approach. And so, there's going to be some changes coming soon. Most of them are additions. There'll be one, I guess you could say, moderately significant subtraction. But in general, the amount of content is going to continue to increase and going to continue to increase rapidly, especially, well, it is going to increase net because the audiobooks are going up. So, Is there a link to this D Live on the blog? No, I don't. I never bothered putting up links on the blog for video. I, generally speaking, if I'm going to do a dark stream on D Live, I will usually put up I'll usually put up a video on the sorry, not a video. I'll usually put up a note on the Social Galactic. So as far as Junior Classic stuff, just wait. We've got all the notifications about people that either had a problem or didn't get a book or whatever. We're putting it all together in a report, and we're sending it to the printer that's responsible for that. So you don't need to contact anyone. If you sent us an email about it, you don't need to contact anyone. So anyhow, right now we're working on, obviously we got the Demi Octavos out, although those need to be fixed apparently. And we are working on 4, 5, and 6 right now. And obviously we need to get the ebooks out, but that'll happen soon. So anyhow, the important thing is that all of these projects are going to continue because we have to do them. We have no I don't do tech support here, West whatever Bear. So stop talking about your issues. Okay, there's like 500 people here, and that's not that's not the time. It's kind of funny how people don't seem to understand that there's a whole bunch of people here. Okay, we're not going to talk about, if we're talking about interest rates, we're not going to talk about your mortgage. If we're talking about projects and books, we're not going to talk about the fact that the delivery company didn't ship one to you. I'm not going to fix it right now. So anyhow, we need, apparently we need to put up a thing that's saying that streams are not tech support. So if you have an issue, put the comment up on Indiegogo or something. It goes to the right place. But and I don't mean to sound unsympathetic, but the fact of the matter is, if you want us to do things, then talking to me about every little problem is the best way to assure that I will never write another word of A Sea of Skulls or any new comics. Okay? I'm the creative side. So just, if you have an issue, just wait. We'll get around to them. But we're not going to get around to them right away. So, so try to keep that in mind. Yeah. So anyhow, I mean, I'll be the first to admit that customer support is not our strength. And that's the way it is. Why? Because we're focused on creating the best possible stuff that we can create. People that are like, well, I mean, I don't control FedEx. I don't control the U.S. Postal Service. When they screw up, that's not something that we can really do terribly much about. And so we are working on better processes. Those of you who subscribe to Castalia Library are noticing now that in the U.S. we provide tracking numbers. That's new. And we're going to, yeah, but you're not as efficient as Amazon. No, we're not. You know why? Because the CIA doesn't give us a couple $1 billion a year. Because we don't have near infinite resources, and we focus all of our resources on producing new stuff that we believe fits our mission profile. And I'm very, very appreciative that there's literally 10 to 20,000 people who are supporting this. And, hopefully, White King says, Vox also didn't sleep with a clown whore. This is true. As a general rule, as a general life principle, I try to avoid sleeping with demon clown whores. I mean, seriously, that woman, if you put her in a movie, you would immediately assume that she's like the demon clown whore, and it's a horror movie. Just, that whole physiognomy is real thing is impressive. Blitzkrieg Bear says the tracking number is new to me. Yeah, it's brand new. So if your stuff, I believe if your stuff was already shipped, it wouldn't have gone. But again, I don't know. I'm not paying any attention to that sort of thing right now. Right now, I am almost completely focused on Project Asteroid and writing, and then also overseeing some of the tech development on unauthorized. So that's what we're doing. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day, and so so that's what we're focused on. And we're gonna circle back. I'm certain that Dante's Inferno shipped before then. I'm still waiting for my Dante, by the way, but some people are already getting Plutarch. Which reminds me, I need to get goat skins and cowhides ordered for Summa Helvetica. So we're, but yeah. So I mean, all I can ask you is to be patient. I think it matters more that we get this stuff done right, and we get this stuff done well, and that we get this stuff done with the best quality possible, than it is to rush anything out. I mean, I can absolutely guarantee you that we're not running around buying fancy stuff or whatever. I don't even know what I would spend stuff on, even if we were, because the stuff that I would most like is to put more resources into the projects. This, for example, this artist, we have secured, the illustrator, we've secured his services for the next year. So we are completely booking him, and as we find other artists that we value at that level, then we're going to do that too. I don't care. I mean, thank you, General Grudge, but I don't care what the D-Live stream titles are. I don't actually pay much attention to it. This will be named properly on unauthorized. I'm actually a little puzzled that they didn't change it, because I did actually change the name. I probably forgot to save it or something. And so, anyhow, no, I'm not saying anything more about Project Asteroid. You'll find out the details at the appropriate time. I mean, if you think hard enough about it, you can probably figure out kind of what we're talking about. But I think the devil's always in the details, and that's where things are going to get really interesting. But I can tell you that the scope of this is going to be much bigger and broader than you're imagining. And so Moose Moose enjoyed the eye gobbler chapter. Yeah, eye popper the crow. Yeah, that was it was kind of funny because people had been accusing me of, or originally, people who had just seen the title, A Throne of Bones, they accused me of imitating George Martin, which anyone who has read those books understands is not at all the case. I always said, I'm not ripping off George Martin, I'm ripping off Joe Abercrombie, which nobody understood because there's virtually nothing in common between the Selenoth books and any of Joe Abercrombie's books. But of course, that one chapter is very much in the mode of a chapter that Joe Abercrombie wrote. Now, whether you think mine is better than his or his is better than mine is irrelevant, because we both borrowed it from cinema. You know, I mean, although I did specifically have the Abercrombie, I wanted to do something like that, I knew perfectly well that he had taken it most likely from Kenneth Branagh's Henry V. You know, there's a section of Kenneth Branagh's Henry V in the battle, I think it's probably Agincourt, but where it follows that sequence. And so it's always kind of amusing to be accused of stealing something from someone who didn't originate it. So so anyhow, that's all I have to say really right now on the topic. Does anyone have any questions? You know, we don't have super chats or anything, but certainly people can ask a few questions. I've got a bit of time. Spider Bip agrees that it's a great movie. It is a great movie. I highly recommend it. So I don't quite get the, and yet no weight gain or net beard. I don't know what that means. Vox, my Verizon Wi-Fi is spotty. Can you help me out? You mentioned the leather Suma. How will it be for sale again? It was the subscription 2 months ago, and actually starting I think in 2 weeks you'll be able to purchase it. If you're a subscriber, you can get it for the discount. Otherwise, you'll be able to get it for $150. How many books can a goat skin make? About 2. Is Corvus alive? I don't answer questions about things in the book, you know, for the benefit of those who haven't read them. White King thought Excalibur was a good movie. Okay. Where can I submit content to be considered for unauthorized? We're not looking for any additional content at the moment. I mean, there's a couple people that we're talking to, but as a general rule, I encourage people to, you know, if you're doing new content and that sort of thing, if you haven't built up an audience yet, in that case, I encourage you to just put it on BitChute or something. Unauthorized is for people, for the most part, is for people that have an audience and are potentially facing some kind of deplatforming risk. How is 5G warfare impacting the U.S. right now? Who's the enemy and who's winning within? Well, let's first start about it. There's two, I mean, you could technically say there's 2 types of 5G warfare, although I'd really only count the one. Right now, the United States is a battlefield right now, and it's being fought between the, for lack of a better term, the internal Jewish lobby, so AIPAC, etc., which is attempting to utilize the resources and the military of the US empire for itself. And then they're also, but they are currently engaged in a struggle mostly with China. And the 5GW that we're seeing is everything from potentially COVID to the takeover and purchase of the educational systems, both in the United States and the UK. Everything from trade to colonization. And so anyhow, that's how it's happening. If you haven't read Unrestricted Warfare yet, a strategic manual, more or less, written by two Chinese army colonels back in 1999, I would highly recommend it. You'll have a much better understanding of what's going on. And so, the battle for the 21st century is essentially the Sino-Jewish War. And it'll be interesting to see how it turns out, because it's going to have a tremendous impact on how all of us live. When will Unauthorized get live streaming? We'll let you know, but it's definitely coming this year. What's your favorite type of tea? It's not actually tea. I like this hot drink that's actually more like an apple cider called Russian tea, that was always served at halftime or in between periods at hockey games at outside ice arenas. If you are having issues being an editor for Infogalactic, email crew@infogalactic.com. Are there plans for more Castalia replatforming books coming out on Patreon? Yes, there will be 3 of them coming out in rapid succession this week. We were just working on that, in fact. The best deal possible for ebooks right now is Castalia on Patreon. I highly recommend that you do it. Do you have an opinion on who's winning? It looks like the Chinese at the moment. What do you think the US will look like over the next 4 years? Well, assuming that there isn't anything, that all the anomalies surrounding the Joe Biden not administration, if they turn out to be nothing, then you're going to see an economic crash, and you're going to see a lot more of the quote-unquote natural disasters with consequences over time that we've just seen in Texas. There's really not particularly functional government in the United States right now. Let's see. I went with, Be Good says, I went with the paper book option with Castalia. Have not been disappointed yet. Yeah, the paper books have actually just, we're getting caught up on those faster than on the ebooks, ironically. So, but it'll be there. Like, we always deliver the stuff. We just sometimes take longer than you would think is reasonable. So, that's not how I wish things to be. But I'm not handling every step of the process along the way. So, but I'm also not going to throw anybody under the bus. So it's just where it is. Can SJWs get to a point where they can't willingly double down? Yeah, usually when they run out of resources. So, all right. On that note, I wish you all a good evening. And in the meantime, I would strongly recommend picking up a hardcover copy of The Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion and so forth, because there's going to come a time when you probably can't buy the original text. That's the goal. So be prepared. I'm Vox Day. This is the Darkstream.